Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Daniel, and in this YouTube channel, I'll be covering the critical moments and some analysis on these critical moments of my tournament games that I have played in the past as well as in the future when I play more tournaments. So for this specific video, I'll be covering a critical moment that occurred in the 53rd Annual Liberty Bell Open in my round 1 game, and this was played online due to the pandemic. And at the time, my rating was 1253, but don't worry, I've gotten a lot better since then, so hopefully I'll provide some higher insight currently than I would have a year and a half ago. So without further ado, let's see what happened in the game. So in this current position, this is in fact actually the critical moment after I play this move h3 and black play this move bishop d7. This is in fact the critical moment, as here I found this very nice tactical shot, bishop takes h6. So here my idea was that the pieces, that black's pieces, they were all mainly focused on the queen side rather than on the king side, where I thought there were potential attacking chances since he only had 3 pawns here before this move bishop to h6. He only had 3 pawns here and his lone king, which were protecting his king. So I thought there were some good attacking chances here, especially after this move bishop takes h6, followed by if he takes back, then maybe I have queen takes h6 and I have good attacking chances. So in fact in the game he did play g takes h6, and here I play queen takes h6. The threat is very simple. I have queen h7, king f8, and queen h8 coming if he plays a dumb move. So for example, let's say he plays b5. Here I have queen h7, king f8, and queen h8 checkmate. His king cannot escape as my queen is covering both of the squares that he can escape to. So here, instead of playing a dumb move like b5, he played this move f5, and here I play this move queen takes e6, threatening some more pawns, as well as attacking the king. So my idea here was that after queen takes e6, I have 3 pawns for the piece, so material is firstly balanced, so that's good, and secondly, I have good attacking chances with this wide open king here. So, but however, there was also this different move, which was en passant, e takes f6, and this renews the threat of queen h7, king f8, and now queen g7 instead of queen h8, because if I play queen h8, then I don't control the f7 square, and you can escape to this square. Although that still leads to checkmate, it takes an extra move. So for example, if I play b5 here, just to demonstrate, queen h7, king f8, I can play queen to g7, which is a checkmate in 1. If I play instead queen h7, king f8, and I play queen h8, then after king f7, then it's queen g7. It's a mate in 3, although it takes 1 extra move. So here, however, I play queen takes e6 in the game. Here he plays king to g7, and I play this move bishop takes f5. So now I'm actually, in fact, up material, since now I have 4 pawns for the piece that I sacrificed. So here this move bishop takes f5, there's 2 purposes for this. One is, of course, put another attacker on this knight on d7. So I have this queen and this bishop attacking with only this queen defending. Secondly, I have this threat of queen to g6, and potentially after king f8, for example, then I have bishop to e6. And if king h8, I have queen to h7. So for example, let's say b5, then I have queen to g6. If king to f8, then I play bishop to e6, for example. And here I'm threatening to play queen to f7 checkmate, and in fact it is unstoppable. Say he plays king to h8, then I simply have queen to h7 checkmate. So after bishop takes f5, he has to deal with this threat as well as my threat of queen to g6. So he plays this move knight to f8, simultaneously attacking my queen as well as protecting the square on g6. So here I just take another pawn. Now I have 5 pawns for the piece, so even greater material advantage for me, as well as putting some pressure on this knight, which is now attacked 2 times with my knight on c3, my queen on c6, and is only defended once by his queen on d8. Here he moves his knight to f4. I reposition my queen and centralize it by playing this move queen to e4. So firstly I'm hitting the knight, so the knight has to most likely move. And in the future I maybe have queen to g4 check, attacking the king again, and potentially this move e6 and knight to e5 to take away more squares from the king. And that would also liberate maybe like rook e4, which is a rook lift, and I can maybe go rook to h4, rook to g4 in the future. So here he plays knight to g6. I continue with my idea of queen to g4. So now I'm pinning the knight with the queen, and as well as the bishop here, it's also putting some pressure on this piece right here. And like I mentioned before, I maybe can play e6, and I can even play knight to e5 in the future. So here he plays bishop to c8. Now he drops his bishop back to his home square. So this bishop is really bad compared to my bishop on f5, which is doing a splendid job of putting some pressure on this knight right here. So here, I prevent this trade from happening by playing this move e6, like I mentioned. And my threat, of course, is to play knight into e5. And that would put a third attacker on this pinned piece, and that would potentially win the piece. Here, he plays this move bishop to f6, preventing my move knight to e5, as he would simply capture. And here, instead of playing what would be the best move, I played knight to e4. The best move here would have been d5. And although this looks like it gives away a pawn, after bishop takes c3, b takes c3, and queen takes d5, looks like he won a pawn. However, I have this move rook to a to d1. Here, his queen does not actually have a really good square to go to. In fact, the computer just suggests queen takes f5, which is a psychotic move, as we know. So let's look at some options for for black, if he doesn't want to play the psychotic move in this variation. Say queen to c6, then simply knight to e5, a double attack and a fork, attacking the queen as well as the knight on g6, which is pinned, which is why he cannot take back, and hence I would win this piece on g6. Say he moves to somewhere on the 5th rank. So let's say he plays queen to a5. Then I have this bishop takes g6, knight takes g6, and knight h4. And all those pieces, as you can see, besides from the knight and the king, are all on the queen side, so they're not really helping the king out much in its defense. And this knight on g6 will be lost on the next turn, as there's no way to protect it without giving away more material. So, in the game, however, I played this move knight to e4. My reasoning for this was mainly to bring another piece into the game. Since this is mainly an open type of board, there aren't any locked pawn structures. I want to trade off my knight for the bishop, since the bishop is more of a long-range piece, whereas the knight is more short-range and a bit more of a tricky piece for closed positions. So here he takes this pawn on e6. Unfortunately, I dropped this pawn. But here I decided to try to trade everything off, since of course I have these 4 pawns here, which in the endgame are really, really useful, since passed pawns obviously become queens. And he has to contend with all 4 of these pawns, despite me being down a minor piece. So here he takes back with the queen. I continue with my plan of trading. Knight takes, and then here I play rook a to d1. My idea is that the central pawn, I'm going to support it with the rook, and potentially I can push it in the future. This knight on e6 is potentially a target for this pawn with d5, and maybe I can push it to e6 and d6 and d7, as it is a passed pawn in general. Here he plays rook a to d8, bringing his last piece into the game. And here I play this move h4. So my idea with h4 is that his king on g7 is still pinned. His knight on g6 is still pinned to the king, so my idea is to play h4, h5, and potentially win this knight on g6. So he plays king to f7 in order to slide away from this pin, and here I found this really nice 3-move combination, which actually wins this rook on d8. So here I play h5, getting the knight away from this nice e5 outpost square for my knight. He plays knight to f8, play knight to e5 check, and notice with this move h5, once his knight moves away, I've actually opened up the queen on the g-file, so now the king cannot come back to the g-file, and actually has to run towards the center. So he plays king to e7, and here I play this move knight to c6, forking the king and the rook. And here I just mop up the rest of the pieces. I play this move d5, and here I play rook to d3, probably the last instructive moment in this game, or second last. And then here the idea is to play rook to f3 and pin. So he plays queen to g7, and this final blow to the position, I play rook to e7 check, and here he has to take. If he moves this king anywhere else, then I take the queen with check, and mate will follow soon after. So after he takes, I take with the queen, and soon after I ended up winning this game. So, hope you guys enjoyed this critical moment, especially this nice sacrificing move, bishop takes h6. And what's funny about this game is actually, in fact, bishop takes h6, so this was my second tournament, and in fact, chess.com marked this as a brilliant move, this move, bishop takes h6. So, which is quite funny, since at the time, it was my second tournament, and I was able to play a brilliant move. So, hope you guys enjoyed this game. Hope you guys enjoyed the critical moment, this nice move, bishop takes h6. And yeah, if you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and I'll attach the PGN of this game in the comments below in case you guys want to look at the full game in its full length. Thanks again.